Here is a news commentary entitled, Liberian Government's Media Curtailment During the State of Emergency is Unconstitutional. Liberia's attempt at a successful fight against the COVID-19 pandemic is clouded by the unilateral usurpation of the lawmaking function of the national legislature by the country's Ministry of Information against the local media. African Star and Liberia Public Radio register that we are very troubled and draw public attention to the Ministry of Information's selective exempt accreditation of media houses and journalists for coverage of the period of the state of emergency declared by the government to fight and contain the spread of the highly contagious disease. Our alarm of this constitutional violation is not to impede government's containment effort and preservation of the welfare of Liberians which are so necessary, but to defend the inalienable right of freedom of expression, freedom of thought, and the pursuit thereof. Liberia has a dismal record of rights and press freedom infringements, and the ramp to these violations over the years has been the attempt to protect the government, state, and people from perceived dangerous situations, people, and institutions. But that approach has not worked. Article 15C of the 1986 Constitution stipulates that in pursuance of this right, there shall be no limitation on the public right to be informed about the government and its functionaries. The limitation of the freedom of expression and pursuance thereof, which we argue, is clearly protected in Article 15E of the same Constitution, which further states that the freedom may be limited only by judicial action in proceedings grounded in defamation or invasion of the rights of privacy and publicity, or the commercial aspect of expression in deception, false advertising, and copyright infringement. The Liberian government has made no legal effort in a competent court of law to prove any violation by the media in this matter, and to the best of our reasonable judgment, the Liberian media have not violated their calling in this regard. Simply put, there is no legal basis to deny some media houses and journalists exempt passes. For a functionary of the executive branch, the Ministry of Information in Liberia, to unilaterally and arbitrarily abrogate unto itself the duty of fabricating a mechanism like lawmaking and implementation, and deciding who and what media institutions can practice and disseminate information in pursuit of the public's right to know, is unconstitutional. The media's assertive posture in this matter is in no way an attempt to discount or shirk the responsibility when the media betrayed their trust through irresponsible and nefarious reportage. While the Liberian media are offering a hand of partnership to the government through the business of factual dissemination of information, they are also demanding accountability and transparency because of accounts of alleged abuses by members of the Joint Security, of the state of emergency enforcement, which have been exhibited on social media. African Star and Liberia Public Radio remind the Information Ministry and the government of Liberia that the plurality of media services serves as a bulwark against tyranny and dictatorship, even where government may have good intentions. The media will not shy away from guarding the fundamental rights of our society, including its own preservation. And we do these by shining a light on instances of excesses and challenging attempts at curtailing and infringing on our God-given right of free expression. The slippery slope of surrendering the role of the media to a governmental agency for permission to pursue the truth is dangerous and undemocratic. We challenge the Liberian government to provide the media in the West African nation full and unhindered access to cover the pandemic remediation because the people have a right to know what efforts their government is taking to protect them against the deadly virus. And this can only happen when the independent media have unfiltered access and not through the selective issuance of exempt passes. Therefore, the Liberian government's media curtailment tactic during the period of the state of emergency is unconstitutional. This year, as we join our global colleagues in the observation of World Press Freedom Day, we reconfirm and recommit ourselves to the values of a free and democratic society where press freedom is not only an integral component of keeping the government in check, but also is a fulcrum of sustaining democratic governance. As paragons of democratic institutions, African Star and Liberia Public Radio recommit to the value of a quote authored by Thomas Jefferson, who said, "Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost." This news commentary is a collaboration between African Star and Liberia Public Radio.